First, everybody, welcome back to the Grand Torino. As you can see, delighted to welcome back Dr. Steve Turley. Dr. Steve, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Rowan. It's great to be with you as always.
Delighted you could join me. Before we get started, just want to direct your attention over to turleytalks.com. You'll find many great publications there from Steve, Dr. Turley, lauded author and general thinker in political things going on in around the world and conservative trends. So I'm not going to keep the formalities I'll try to keep the formalities brief as I can, Steve, because I'm excited to get to talk to us. It's been a while. I want to thank all my supporters for all your kind words and support. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget, press the like button, press the subscription button and the bell, and you'll be reminded of future broadcasts here on the Grand Torino. Now, Dr. Steve, I set the little premise. Dr. Steve, to apologise. I set the premise earlier on. I wanted to set us off on a little journey. First of all, we might touch upon the impeachment process as the way it's being portrayed by CNN, and how the Irish Times and maybe our corporate media are mimicking CNN in their thinking that the impeachment process is a done deal and it's only a matter of time now before President Trump is impeached, and the democratic will of the people can be overturned, because, as President Trump says, they're trying to overturn the last election because they know they can't win the next election that's coming on. What say you, Dr. Turley?
Yeah, you got it, Rowan. I think you put it all in there. The data doesn't lie. 90% of our incumbents win re-election. Americans since 1932, have almost an unbroken record of wanting at least 2 terms for our incumbent president. They like an 8-year term, and they'll go from one party 8 years and then to the next party 8 years. So it's only been broken once. Jimmy Carter, he only had 1 term. He was kicked out by Reagan. And then George Bush Sr., he didn't get reelected, but a lot of scholars would argue that doesn't count, because in many ways, George Bush Sr. was Reagan's 3rd term when he was elected in 1988. So it's rare that we have 12 years of a single party in power. So if we just use our historical trajectory here, Trump's starting off with a 90% chance of being reelected. And now with our economy booming, the wall getting built, him taking on the swamp and driving it into their faces each and every day, pumping up his base. He's one of the most exciting, right-wing candidates we've had in ages. So yeah, that's really what's going on here. And in many ways, the impeachment circus has only worked in his favor. We've seen his polling go up. This is what the BBC and CNN International, they just love to ignore. But his polling has actually been going up through this process. Rasmussen had him at 45% on the Wednesday that the impeachments began. That Friday, 72 hours later, he went up to 50%. So he jumped 5 points, literally, in a matter of just hours after this whole thing began. He finished off this last week, very high 40% average aggregate. So this has only worked in his favor. There is no way. So just in case your viewers are not aware, so I'm sure virtually all of them are, but the Democrats own our House of Representatives, and the Republicans own the Senate. They have the majority. And the Republicans are looking at the House. All this nonsense, this impeachment nonsense is going on in the House. They're looking at the House like these are just a bunch of clowns. Adam Schiff he hasn't been able to produce a single strand of hard evidence that Trump did anything wrong. All of his witnesses that were supposed to give us all these bombshells all involved hearsay. Nobody had any direct interaction with Trump where he said, yeah, I want to hold up this military aid for Ukraine until they help my reelection. The best evidence we still have is the transcript with him speaking with Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and there's nothing there. I mean, there's literally nothing there. So when all said and done, support for impeachment has imploded. Trump's poll numbers are rising. Democrats are basically broke at this point. The Democratic National Committee is in debt. Their candidates are pathetic. We feel pretty good over here.
I noticed that Bloomberg is stepping out of the wings and trying to throw his hat into the ring for the presidential races because, as you say, all the candidates so far have very, very lackluster. Even Joe Biden now becoming increasingly under pressure to appear before the Senate. And
Yeah.
I want to remind people as well that this is an impeachment inquiry. This is no basis in law. This is hence why they're denying the Republicans the right to call witnesses or bear witnesses themselves. But even still, when they were allowed a certain amount of questioning, their stars, Rose Jordan, the other female senator, I can't remember her name, Stanovich, I think it was, just basically destroyed the narrative by simple questioning. You have no direct evidence, yes or no? No. Totally right. And then, as you say, with the transcript, any journalist worth their salt, I mean, I'm relaying back to our corporate media over here, that the transcript was there for all to read. There was no quid pro. Even in the second transcript release, the president himself said, when he was asked by the chief Democrat star witness, Ambassador Solander, what do you want? The president replied, I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo.
Right.
I want him to do exactly what he ran on, and let's just crack on. That there is the end of the impeachment inquiry. This is not an impeachment hearing. So then there's no basis in law. So this is just another facade that they're rattling the drums. Meanwhile, we've got the IG report due out later on, December the 10th. Lindsey Graham announced during the week there on Fox News with Sean Hannity that the Inspector General, the much lauded. Now, I take note from Dan Bongino. I watch his show and I watch his breakdown. He's been on top of the Russiagate hoax collusion from the very start. And he's not so impressed that he thinks the Inspector General would be the be-all and end-all. But it might lead on for Bull Durham, as he's affectionately known these days, because his is an actual criminal investigation with powers to subpoena. What's your thoughts on that, Dr. Turley?
Yeah, I think that was, again, perfect, Rowan. I think so. I think all eyes are on John Durham right now, who is the special prosecutor who has officially now opened up a criminal investigation. Everyone's saying, I mean, the honest ones, everyone is saying, even I think I mentioned Geraldo Rivera, who's who's no fan of Trump. Even he is saying you're starting to see all the high-ranking officials with the Obama administration lawyering up right now. They are expecting something to blow. I think in many ways, this impeachment hearing, the timing of it was in order to try to blunt some of that blow. To try to say, oh, but Trump. I don't think it's working. This is going to be a real investigation with real evidence of wrongdoing. And there's so much associated with the Obama administration. There was so much corruption. And if, I'm like you, I'm always a little nervous when the swamp is in charge of a swamp investigation.
Yeah.
But this looks pretty good. Again, with John Durham being brought in, Bull Durham, as you put it, this looks pretty promising. So I don't want to be Rachel Maddow Part 2 and promise, oh yeah, the indictments are going to be flying and we're going to bring down Obama and Hillary in the swamp. Well, we'll see, but it certainly looks quite promising.
Yeah, we've been 3 years since I spoke on the subject over a year and a half ago, where the Q phenomenon that broke out and just kind of the early release of information. Everything seems to have still stacked up. FISA-gate warrants are still under investigation by the Attorney General Barr. And that kind of gives me a little segue as well, Dr. Turley, into the Epstein situation. Now, Epstein situation is not going away. However the press want to try and push that, it's catching on in meme form. We've had people like on the Waters show ending their statements with saying Epstein didn't hang himself. And it's become more of a meme brought into life now. That all these things aren't adding up. Pretty much like what people suspect with 9/11, wherever your thinking is on that, Building 7 didn't hang itself either. So with Attorney General's Barr seeming lackluster in prosecuting the co-conspirators, we've got Ghislaine Maxwell still walking free. We've got a French model, Bernard, I think his name was. These two co-conspirators can, in effect, carry on the investigation and maybe give some sort of justice to the victims in all of this, because there are thousands and thousands of people coming forward. And the royal family is now embroiled in it as well, with Prince Andrew now being withdrawn from public. Is disastrous. And how the man is still even walking around, or not even extradited to the United States to face a criminal investigation. He has no, what I understand, protection against prosecution, being a member of the royal family. He's not afforded that protection. It only goes as far as Prince Charles. So why do you think the Trump administration is hesitant to start pursuing that particular investigation as well?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I have an answer for that, especially in light of the tweets that were coming out after his suicide. I mean, you had a Trump administration official come out and say, bottom line, he just got Hillaried, you know. So that was amazing. I mean, our press went bananas when they saw that. How could, you know, a Trump official, how could an official of Washington say something like this? Only us right-wing conspirators would say that. I don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna sit back and try to watch and figure that one out, because, you know, we had that Project Veritas expose from ABC News. I'm forgetting the anchor's name. Very pretty
Daniel
lady.
Roach, blonde lady, I remember. But she effectively said she had the goods on everything, including the Clintons. No follow-up.
Oh yeah, she mentioned them by name. Absolutely.
Mentioned them by name.
Yep.
So
and it got pulled. It got pulled by the execs, and they worked together. I mean, my heavens, CBS fired a staffer that was suspected of being the one who leaked the video. She says she didn't. But ABC did their own investigation, found that one of their employees who would have had access to that video ended up moving over to CBS. They contact their execs over at CBS and they fire her. So they're working in tandem together in a very bizarre way. And no one has taken on fake news like Trump. And it just seems like the whole Epstein thing would fall perfectly right under a very legitimate investigation into what's really going on here.
I would say
we'll have to see.
Maybe the ducks are lining up on that. As you say, let's see how it goes through, because I know the director of the public prison services, she was up in front of the Senate, and some very pertinent questions were asked along that line. So we'll see how that investigation goes. But I want to we'll steer our conversation in, as we say, then in regards to demographic changes, using your very unique conservative trend, polling and taking numbers. You may extrapolate, as I mentioned, the demographic changes going on in California, the southern borders of the United States, and translate that then to what I see, the comparison between sanctuary cities. I believe Ireland is being run as a sanctuary city. And if we were to transport that over to California and Texas region in and around yourself, because you do have another sanctuary city there as well, in and around your neck of the woods as well. So can you explain for me how it presents in the United States, the side effects of that, where illegal immigrants are given near blanket protection against prosecution, even on for murder? They get deported, but they seem to come back in up to about 10 times, various different criminal actions, and it just seems to be carte blanche with no enforcement, and even going so far as ICE investigations being scuppered by government agencies to protect them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's deliberate. It cannot not be. We find that immigrants vote upwards 70-80% Democrat. It's not that they're liberal. Most of them are actually very socially conservative, but cultural Marxism has taken a hold in the West right now, in the United States, Canada, Europe, Latin America, where if you are a minority ethnicity, then you are by definition a Democrat, because they're the ones who are going to laud you, give you all these protections and the like, and the Republicans are going to try to keep you down. That's kind of the political paradigm here. And all throughout the West, we're experiencing this in Britain and so on, where minority cultures are given preferential treatment in favor of their votes. And the dominant culture is being told that it has to keep silent. It has to accept the fact that it is imperialist, wicked, guilty of cultural appropriation and the like. And the whole irony is that there's nothing more culturally appropriating and imperialistic than cultural Marxism itself. But having said all that, that's kind of the setup there. And there's a couple of things going on. There's a couple of trends. In the midst of all that, of course, we have, like you say, California. And what it's done, I'm sure to a certain extent, Ireland, what it's done, this open borders policy, is it's created this sort of cultural Marxist insanity, where now we're voting for the most the least qualified politicians imaginable, but because they've got the right party next to their name, or because they say the right fluffy things, we're all one big family, whatever it is.
Also, diversity quotas will have a lot to do with that as well, Dr. Turley.
Diversity quota, you got it.
We're having them rolled out soon here. Our Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, has signalled that he wants to bring in diversity quotas. We've already had gender quotas, and they're being forced through. And it's to the suppression of meritocracy. Are you capable? Are you qualified for the position you are being put for?
Absolutely. Again, it's the idea that if you're a minority, you get to celebrate your culture, whatever it is. That you can celebrate your sexuality, you can celebrate your gender, you can celebrate your ethnicity, your race. But if you're in the majority, you're told you need to shut up. You have to be quiet. That's you're guilty of oppression. And this is and to me, that's I'm very appreciative of the work of Eric Kaufman in his book White Shift. It's big. It's a big, thick book. It's probably about 800-900 pages on this kind of exactly this stuff. And he just says, look, you could look at the political psychological literature. There's actually a scholarship out there called political psychological literature. And when you tell any group of people, any population, you need to just sit down and shut up and accept how we're doing things, 50% of the population right away says, no way, I'm not doing that. We just have, you and I would be part of that 50%. We just have this innate bent of that's not right. And we have an innate bent that we love our culture, our customs, and our traditions. Like I always say, not because we hate people on the outside, but because we love the people on the inside. I lock my doors at night, not because I hate anybody out there. It's because I love everybody in here.
Exactly.
So it's a net positive we're finding in the scholarship. People who love their culture tend to love other cultures. They really do. So it's the forced integration on cultural Marxist terms that's eliciting this massive backlash. So we're seeing it even in California. We're seeing it in Texas because it's been happening a lot in Texas. And we're seeing it throughout the world, throughout Western Europe right now. Our boys, Lega, I know you've been out there in Italy working with them. They just took Umbria. Umbria, the region of Umbria, for your viewers, has been under basically communist control for 70 years. Umbria is as far left as you can get. Lega, Matteo Salvini's Lega, stormed the place in their last regional election and won overwhelmingly, along with the Brothers of Italy, Giorgia Meloni's party. And now they have an outstanding, powerful coalition there. It's happening quite literally everywhere, but at different degrees. This blowback, this backlash against the forced change in demographics that at least just automatically, based on political psychology, 50% of the dominant population will despise. It doesn't even register in their psyche and how they understand the world. So yeah, it's bad, it's rough. And we're also, what Kaufman argues, this is neat, Rowan, you'll like this. Kaufman argues it's temporary. It's a very interesting argument in White Shift. He argues the insanity, this sort of sanctuary city insanity that we're seeing in places like California or Ireland. he thinks is temporary. He thinks there's going to be a combination of a mass backlash that will start to gain critical mass, but also the inevitable intermarriage, where we're finding that those people who come into, I'd say, a dominant culture population, they eventually join that population. They eventually intermarry into that population and begin accepting their conservative norms as their own. Very similar to kind of the way the Israelites kind of assimilated people in the ancient world. And so Eric Kaufman actually thinks the kind of insanity we're experiencing right now is a temporary insanity. Now it may go on for, another decade, 2 decades, that kind of thing, but it will have an end, and it will taper off in a much more homogenous, culturally homogenous, conservative manner.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a definite insight there to be aware of. Again, leading back, I just, as I said to you at the start, we were making the comparison to sanctuary cities and stuff like that between Ireland and the way it's run. And I think we might just round out today's conversation. And now, Dr. Turley, I think we might just use these last few sections to use your insightful and just give us a broad perspective of the rise of nationalism throughout Europe, with the new parties, Vox, Swedish nationalism also making a register. I believe German national parties also coming through, the AFD, and again over in Canada as well, even the most multicultural with Justin Trudeau gaining, even though he gained re-election again, which was quite surprising again. Give us your thoughts before we sign off on the rising trend that is the powerhouse of populism, conservatism in the respect for tradition and culture.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just seems like after every election where the nationalist populists didn't do as well as we hoped or what have you, you're just treated to a week of headlines in this corporatist globalist media that said, oh, populism's over, it's fizzled out, it reached its popularity, it was just a fad, and now it's done, kind of thing. And you and I are looking at stuff like that. We're like, these people have no idea what's really going on. They have no clue. I was just reading in a book on business strategy the other day. It was by The Economist, a bunch of scholars from, I guess, paid for by The Economist magazine. So again, not conservative by any stretch of the imagination. They said something fascinating. They said, we're living in a time of a strange kind of dialectic where the more globalists we get, we evoke more tribalist sentiments. The more globalists, the more tribalists. And I'm like, these guys, even these guys get it. They understand that globalism cannot soar without a massive nationalist backlash for every time it tries to win. So we're seeing it with the entire Trump impeachment things, where you think, the way CNN International is putting it out there, oh, they're winning, the Democrats are winning, they're destroying. Well, okay, in one level, at one optic level, sure, they're trying and they're doing all this sort of stuff, but then there's the blowback, there's the backlash. So what are we seeing in Europe of late? We're seeing conservatives now with a 14-point, on average, 14-point lead over Labour in Britain. Boris looks like he is going to get Brexit finally done. He's gonna do it.
Maybe in name, Dr. Turley, maybe in name. But,
right.
I also trying to draw your attention as well, because your last video drop there was on George Soros and his societies, his open society, well, open borders. That's exactly what he touts for.
Sure.
But it's being exposed time and time again, even in the impeachment query. Might even bring us back to the start. You mentioned the people prosecuting the Ukrainian deal have Soros links.
Of course. Oh, of course. Yeah, he's everywhere. He's the emperor of Star Wars isn't going away anytime soon,
Excellent
right? yeah. I have seen some nice memes with the dark robe around him, which is just perfect. I mean, oh, no question. He's going to frustrate the process. Yeah, it may be something where you get it in name only at this point. My argument, though, is that it creates there was a founding father in America that said something like this. I forget, it may have been Patrick Henry or something. He said, you know, our job is to ignite brush fires of liberty in every imagination, something like that. So, you know, we're trying to, and I think what Brexit is doing is it is just like what the Trump candidacy did, it is emboldening nationalist populists to say, you know what, we can do that too. And so I think that's the common thread behind the rise in the conservatives and Nigel Farage, the AFD in Germany, the Sweden Democrats, and the True Finns who are polling #1 right now. True Finns have been up there before, but Sweden Democrats have never been up there. #1 party. Sweden Democrats are polling at 25, 26% in a nation. I don't even know how many parties Sweden has. I think they have 14, 15, 16 parties. Only about 9, I think, get represented. So getting 25%, getting a quarter of all your nation's support in that representational system is absolutely stunning. See the same thing with Vlaams Belang in Belgium. They're the #1 party there. Even Sebastian Kurz, very interestingly enough, in Austria, though the Freedom Party got hit hard with the scandals and all. But even after all that, Sebastian Kurz still seems to be holding on to this nationalist populist light platform that Austrians are saying, yeah, this is our permanent state. We want to stay to the right. We do not want to go center left. We don't want the Greens or anything like that. Vox Party they just absolutely surge 15% again in a multi-party system. Spain has 4 major parties. Vox just knocked out one of them and took spot #3. They're the 3rd most popular party in one of the most left-wing nations in Europe. What's going on? Poland had its re-election. The Law and Justice Party won their 2nd major landslide, even increased their majority. Absolutely astonishing. Orban is still doing amazing things. It's and then watch Italy. It's very interesting. It looks like they're hitting a bit of a recession there. The left-wing coalition that's in place is one of the most unpopular governments they've had in recent years, and you've got this rock star, Matteo Salvini,
on the campaign trail now. Like you say, just conquered Umberto, but I think he's leading now towards Tunisia and trying to break and smash open the long-established communist-held regions around Italy. And I believe they're going to gain and garner the 40% and give themselves full control of the Italian government, and that's going to have huge consequences.
And Brothers of Italy will add another 10 to 12%. And then even the last vestiges of Forza Italia are pretty much just 4 or 5% or so holdouts. But they're again, nationalist populist light at this point. We're talking a majority close to about 55, 60% in Italy for the nationalist right. It's stunning.
Interesting times, Dr. Turley. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there, Dr. Turley. I want to thank you so much for joining us here again and giving us your unique perspective on our situation and the rise of conservatism. Can you let us know where people can find you and what you're about to, what's up, what's next on the calendar for you before we sign off? Tell people how
I will. But first, just if the viewers have not subscribed to your channel, they need to right now. You're my go-to guy of all things Ireland and the Northern Atlantic, as it were. So absolutely, Gran Torino. Yeah, absolutely. Click on that subscribe and bell. Hit the bell too. Yeah, you can check out. Like that's right, and that like button. That's right. Yeah, check out some of my videos. Just hit Steve Turley or Dr. Steve Turley, and you'll get plenty of that. You can go to my website, turleytalks.com. And we just have our big thing now is we're offering lots of neat, really great deals, insane deals.
I've seen that. I want that.
Black Friday, right?
I want that flask, Dr. Turley. You have to send me over one of those solar powered flasks. That looks amazing.
Yeah, it's a deal. You got it, Rowan. It's a deal.
Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you once again, Dr. Turley, for joining us. Please, if you're new here and you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget, smash that like button, hit the subscription, and make your way over to Dr. Turley, and please do reciprocate the same. and join us at 10 to 10. Please join us again for another episode of the Grand Torino, and we'll see you then. Us, everybody. Thank you,
Awesome.
Dr. Turley. Really enjoyed
My
that.
pleasure. My pleasure. Would you